Hey guys, Pretzelman945 here. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are continuing with the One Piece re-review series, and part two is Alabasta. Um, now, obviously, if you're a bit confused, I'm only like rewatching my favorite parts. Which in this case, has included East Blue Alabasta and will include Water 7, Enies Lobby, um, Sabaody, Impel Down, and Marineford. Um, so yeah, let's just jump into it. So going into this arc in particular, I was very curious, like, how my opinion would hold up of it, like, isolated. Because with a difference, with something like this compared to watching all of East Blue, which is kind of like a build up into Orlong Park, for instance. I didn't re-experience of my own choice. I did not re-experience the build up that would have come into Alabasta. And honestly, I think that like my opinion is improved because of that. Not that like the build up arcs are bad. Like Drum Island is fucking fantastic. Whiskey Peak and Rural Garden are okay, but nothing else. But like, Drum Island's fucking fantastic. I know that even though I didn't rewatch it this time. But like my opinion of Alabasta has improved like to a lot higher degree because this art is so incredible, even isolated. Like completely isolated by itself. This is such fucking fantastic art. Um, so I'm gonna kind of go through like bit by bit. So first little thing I want to mention. I've forgotten how much I loved the introduction of Ace in this. Ace is so fucking entertaining, and he's so like just straight up cool. I love the fact that it took the opportunity to also introduce Viva cards. But yeah, I love Ace in the few episodes that he's in. I think his introduction is fucking great. He's super entertaining. Um, I forgot how active Smoker and Dashigi were in this arc, and that's something I'm also a fan of. And overall, actually, something I forgot that I really loved about this arc is actually like much more than I uh remember. It really like goes into like the I guess psychology of justice, and in particular with the Shigi. Um, and really like makes both her and Smoker like question like what they want about the Marines and everything like that. And I think like the fact that that's included is just it's really like a amazing like little side element that's just in here. Um, Another thing I was curious, like the biggest thing I was curious about as to whether it would hold up this time around is Vivi. If you've not seen my One Piece character tier lists, I'm sure I've also probably talked about it in somewhere else, a different video somewhere. But Vivi is one of my favorite side characters in One Piece, and she's like top 10 One Piece characters for me. Um, and I was not disappointed whatsoever. I think that Vivi, think that she's written so good in this arc. Like just seeing her like tireless desperation is nothing short of just inspirational to be like so real. Um, and you feel like such a connection with her as she goes as like I think that's another thing it does so this arc does so well. Like portrayed through Vivi's character, like the constant up and down of just like emotional um climaxes and then like the emotional rises and falls are it's just amazing um how this movie does that. Because like you really feel that through Vivi's character and Vivi's emotions because she has so many moments where she is smiling and happy and determined and confident to like a moment like a couple moments later where you see her like having a breakdown because she is just like either crumbling from the pressure or the stress just like or just like having these bouts of despair. And the amazing thing is it doesn't ever really feel totally inconsistent in any way, which I think is really impressive the way it manages to balance that. I love the all of Vivi's interactions with the Straw Hats in this arc, and it really fucking feels like there is such an amazing, genuine friendship that is being built up there, and I really, really like it a lot. Um, Episode 104 honestly might stand as like up there with my favorite One Piece episodes of all time because not only does this episode have one of my favorite Luffy moments in the entire series, which is her talk with Vivi and about how like, you know, he has to accept that like not everyone can get through this without dying. It's such a like it seemed like it comes out of nowhere, but then it just makes like so much sense in terms of like where it's happening, and I don't think it could have happened at any other time. And I think it's like the best case that shows like the influence that both characters have on each other. And this, and not only was this episode also has one of my favorite crocodile moments of all freaking time in this. Just yeah. Anyway, um, had to fix my mic. But this episode also has one of my favorite crocodile moments of all time, and I think it's probably a nice transition to talking about like how he is one of the best One Piece villains, but that moment where he like just stabs Mr. Three and then just like leaves him in the water, like it's still so mind blowing, and I was so floored the first time I saw that scene because there is no other scene that quite like gets across the pure ruthlessness and the absolute evil that Crocodile is. Um, his fight with Luffy is honestly might be my favorite Luffy fight in the entire series. It's close between that and Luffy versus Doflamingo and Dressrosa, but it really might be my favorite. I can't lie. Crocodile, his entire presence is so just menacing and fantastically evil. And I think he honestly gets this across like better than any other One Piece villain because he just has such a like menacing aura to him, and you feel that with everywhere he is, everything that he does. And obviously the word aura in 2024 is drastically overused, especially in the case of One Piece, especially in the case of One Piece. But like I really don't feel like you get One Piece villains that have more of a significant and more felt presence and aura than Crocodile does. Um, and he is just so like fucking dastardly evil with everything that he does. Like with all of his plans and all the revelations that, like he orchestrated the entire like rebellion. He like never actually planned to do any of the concessions that he had, his plans to like fucking blow up the square and everything like that are it's just it's so crazy. Like the sheer length and evil of his plans, like the way he kills Robin when he just like well, not kills because she ends up alive, obviously, but like the way that just stabs her, like, just revealing that he never trusted her in the first place. That is just like it also like it also like is not the first thing that betrays he has a crazy high level of intelligence, and he's not obviously like all One Piece villains. He has an extreme ego that Luffy takes advantage of, and that's how he's defeated. But like compared to a lot of East Blue villains, he just like has this level of intelligence with his plans, and it is the first time that I think that this is really seen in the series, and I really, really like that a lot. Um, I also love like just um the way that the Logia works in this. It's obviously not stated by name until a couple arcs later, but like the way that the idea of Logias is introduced with his Sand fruit, it works really well, and it still makes it believable because it's not too overpowered, because it makes sense that like sand can be water. Um, so I think all that was done very, very well. Um, Water Luffy, was so funny to see again. I loved that. And I feel like going more into the Luffy versus Crocodile fight. I really like Water Luffy being the shining example. I really like how it's like able to be this example of essentially like this contrast of seriousness versus the more goofier aspects. And unlike a lot of the East Blue fights, there's no part of this fight that ever feels like it drags in any way. And maybe that's because it's kind of segmented between three major parts, but like there is no part of this fight that feels like it drags. It feels like you're constantly like on edge. You're like invested, excuse me, in all the parts of the fight. And the action choreography is fucking stellar. Like the sequences between him and Crocodile, and like the whole poison hook thing was crazy. There were so many like dirty tricks that Crocodile used that just made it like extremely entertaining. Um Now, speaking of fights, I definitely have to talk about all the Straw Hat fights because I think that like collectively this arc has my favorite collection of Straw Hat fights. And it's like one of the few arcs that actually has like a proper confrontation for every Straw Hat, and I just don't think that that's something that's seen in a lot of arcs. It's something I like about any Lobby that I'm sure I will like upon rewatch, but um, it's like not that many arcs, especially in more modern times with One Piece. Like, it's just not something that you see anymore. And I really like it. I'm not gonna go into terrible detail with all of them, but Usopp and Chopper versus Mr. Four and Miss Merry Christmas was absolutely hilarious. It was such a. I think it's honestly one of the most creative fights in all of One Piece because there's so many like ridiculous aspects to it, um, and I think that like Usopp and Chopper's chemistry just goes together really, really well. Um, Sanji, I love Sanji in this arc. I love the whole Mr. Prince bit. It's fucking great. His fight against Bon Clay is really funny because it's so like comically absurd the way that they're just like creating all these kicks and then like him changing face with Nami to just like distract him is really funny. Um and I think it's like the Asanji perviness aspect that's actually used in a decently creative and productive way. Um, Nami versus Miss Doublefinger is a fun one because Nami doesn't have that many like individual fights, and I like the introduction of a climate attack here, and I think that like the way that she uses it kind of like is the start of her having a lot of creativity in her arsenal, which I really like a lot. Um, I also Um, definitely, I think, obviously, because Olivia's Crocodile, my favorite was obviously with some Zoro bias in here, but my favorite was versus Mr. One because I'd forgotten how cool this fight was. Seriously, like, this fight was absolutely fucking awesome. Um, I loved the whole thing about Zoro realizing that like he has to learn how to cut stone, and it was a lot more brutal than I expected. I think that like the way that Mr. One's dice fruit was utilized against Zoro was really interesting, and it was a little bit of a different texture to the sword fights that he had previously, which I quite liked. Uh, And you know, his resilience here was just absolutely amazing. Um, I also just love Mr. One's entire personality as an opponent. I thought it was great. It's really good. It was a really entertaining fight, and I was hooked so all the way through. I forgot how cool it was. Um, I think the final thing I want to talk about is kind of the themes and how that is played into the rebellion aspect because I think Kozen's entire character and the whole idea of the rebellion is absolutely good. I think it's written so well. Um and I think like the way that like goes back to the ties of like the old man waiting for rain. It just like there's so much like emotional buildup with that like one thing, and there's and in between all this stuff in the script, there's these constant fights that like or there is constant like constant like just shots of random fighting that's going on between the Royal Army and the rebels. And I think it really just helps to show the sheer scale of the conflict and is kind of like a grim reminder that despite some of the goofier things that are happening in some of the fights, um, it's kind of like this kind of uh constant like tone reset that like there's still like dark shit going on. There's still a ton of killing going on. And it's massive because it's involving a million fucking people. Um and I think that's another thing that this arc really fucking nails is the scale. Because it really feels like its first like own countrywide thing that is going on. I think it nails it a lot better than a lot of other arcs to be real. Um and that combined with, like I said, the sheer like this masterful quality of the emotional writing between the rebellion and the themes of it not getting rain and the old man and Yuba, and then the way that that is all built up and climaxed, and the way that that connects with V's entire character arc. The fact that all of this is combined within the same fucking arc, it honestly just blows my mind. Um, and that is why, like, if Marineford didn't exist, Alabasta would be my favorite arc, and that's why it's easily my second favorite upon rewatch. Um, maybe Water 7 and East Lobby will have something to say about that, and maybe it won't actually go up any places, but we'll see because that will be in the next part of this series. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and that does it for this episode of One Piece Reviews, and I will see you later. Bye.